Welcome back to Nanna Explains, where your favorite Nanna tells you all about the things that she doesn't understand, but wishes she did in hopes that you can help her out, and constantly badgers you to have a Werther's Original and a cup of tea. Today, we're gonna be talking about something I have recently learned is called nuisance streamers. But don't worry, my little birdies, I got some nuggets of wisdom for y'all today, and it is gonna make sense by the end of this video. I promise you that. So let's just jump into it without breaking a hip. Okay, so what is a nuisance streamer? Well, as it turns out, a nuisance streamer is a massive arsehole who live streams their life or other activities online. This much I sort of understood because I know that there are lots of people who do live streams, and they talk about anything from makeup to gaming to cooking, which leads me to ask, well, why are these people attention-hungry, narcissistic tossers? And here's where I started losing a few brain cells. It turns out that the content these people put out is not really meant to be viewed as entertainment, but instead it's meant to get under your skin. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard or nails down a whiteboard kind of stuff. For instance, I've heard of some of them going to stores and spraying bug spray onto fruit and beg for a prank, telling their stream, I am going to spray this shit, and then just walking out, leaving potentially lethal fruit for people to buy. Or another one that I've heard of is they will crash a McLaren whilst pissing about on their phone and driving way over the speed limit and their driving ability, and then sit there and live stream themselves blocking traffic while their OnlyFans fake girlfriend pretends to care, whilst thinking about the cash she's making out of the twat. As I was doing my research, I also found out that some of them go to fast food restaurants, and they will sit there and order food and then never pick it up, meaning that the food goes to waste. Or they'll order food, and then when it comes out, they won't eat it. They just sit there like twats. And then after a while, they'll call the manager over and they'll say, you have to pay me for this food. And a lot of times, the manager does not understand what's happening at first, because they are not watching the live stream, and they think that this person has a mental impairment or on crack, but they just don't have enough money, and so the manager ends up giving them a damn good thrashing. And apparently, if you look at the chat while they're doing this, most of the comments are laughing and agreeing with them, saying, yes, do it, or get them, girl, or stop smoking crack. And I just want to stop right here and say that I think it is crazy that these people are getting positive reinforcement for doing horrible things. Like I remember back in the day, when people would call into radio stations, and then they would host these contests where they would ask you questions, and if you knew the answer, then you could win a prize, and all that stuff. But then there were some people who would call in just to be annoying and to mess everything up for everybody else. And then occasionally you would get someone who would win one of those contests, who clearly didn't deserve it because they were just obnoxious and rude. And it was always so infuriating to watch. And it feels like these nuisance streamers are giving me the same kind of energy. They ray the type of people who cut in line and then also try to bring snacks into the movie theater. Like, how dare you, girl? How dare you? Okay, so I've been listening to your thoughts down in the comments, and I know a lot of you are curious about why exactly these people do what they do. And as it turns out, some of them do it because they're trying to get views. So they're trying to get attention. They're trying to get noticed. They're trying to get monetized. And a lot of times, what they do is illegal. So they do it, and then they post it afterwards. And I guess if you comment or you interact with their stuff, then they get more exposure, which means that they're doing better. Another reason that some of them do it is because they're angry. They're angry at society. They're angry at the world. They're angry that they're poor. They're angry that they're broke. They're angry that they don't have a purpose. They're angry that their parents named them Tiffany. And so they do these things, and they live stream them, and they broadcast them to show everyone how upset they are about whatever it is that they ray upset about. Now some of them do it because they're trying to shock you. You know, they want to see what the reaction is gonna be. They want to see how far they can push people before they get banned or removed or blocked. They want to test the limits. They want to see what happens if they keep doing this. And I guess they get off on the negative attention. I mean, I remember back when I worked at Blockbuster. There were these two guys who would come in, and they would rent the most ridiculous things that they could find, and then they would pile them up to the counter, and then they would laugh and giggle while they were checking out. And I was always so confused as to why they were doing that because it made no sense. But maybe they were just trying to shock me because I was an unsuspecting cashier who was just trying to do her job. But here's the kicker, okay? Here's the part that really confused me about this whole situation. As I was researching this topic, I came across a channel that had 28,000 subscribers, and they had a live stream that was titled Harassing People at Walmart, and I clicked on it. Now, I am ashamed to admit that I did this, but I clicked on it, and it was one of those situations where I really wanted to understand what was going on here. I really wanted to understand why anybody would subscribe to this channel, why anyone would watch this live stream, and why anyone would encourage this behavior. And as I watched this live stream, which only lasted 46 minutes, the person was driving through the parking lot, and they were pointing their phone at other people as cars, and they were yelling and screaming at them, and they were telling them that they hated them and that they deserved to die. And I'm sitting there thinking, how bad does your life have to be to not only plan this out in your head, but actually execute it? Like, how bad does your life have to be to think to yourself, you know what? I am just gonna drive through a parking lot and scream at random people who are minding their own business and trying to shop for groceries. I was watching this and I was thinking, if I saw this person in real life, I would walk up to them and I would say, do you realize that you're acting like an asshole right now? And then I would explain to them what the word asshole means. And I would tell them how much their behavior is hurting other people. But I know that's not gonna work, because if I did that, then they would probably live stream me doing that, and then they would say that I am the asshole because I am trying to restrict their freedom of speech. But then I would say, you're not allowed to harass people and threaten them with physical harm just because you're exercising your freedom of speech. And then they would say, well, that's your opinion. And then I would say, no, that's not an opinion. That's a fact. And then they would say, okay, boomer. And then I would say, what? And then they would say, nothing. And then I would say, are you sure? And then they would say, yeah. And then I would say, okay. So as I sat there and I watched this nonsense, I realized that these people are beyond help. There's no way to reach them. There's no way to reason with them. They are lost cousins, okay? And the only way to deal with them is to ignore them. As I've gotten older, I've tried to practice this a little bit more. When I used to get frustrated or upset or angry, I used to think that the best solution was to tell everyone around me how frustrated, upset, or angry I was. But now I realize that sometimes the best thing that you can do is just stay quiet. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is to just walk away. Sometimes the best thing that you can do is just not engage. And believe me, I know that this isn't easy because I'm a very emotional person. I'm super passionate and I feel things very deeply. And so when something upsets me, it really, really upsets me. But I've learned that sometimes the best thing for me to do is to not say anything. Sometimes I just need to listen. Sometimes I just need to take a minute and process my feelings and figure out why I'm feeling the way that I am feeling, and then decide whether or not I should share those feelings with somebody else. But don't get it twisted. I am not saying that we shouldn't speak up against injustice, or that we shouldn't stand up for what we believe in, or that we shouldn't use our voices to make a difference in the world. I'm just saying that sometimes the best thing that we can do is just walk away. Okay, so I've rambled long enough, and I'm gonna wrap this up now. I hope that I was able to shed a little light on this topic for you, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with a friend. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Why single quotes all dot by.